Good morrow, scholars. Welcome back to Stormfront, Book 1 of the Dresden Files. Sorry for some late uploads this morning. The kittens that the one cat had outside, I couldn't find them this morning, and so I went looking for them. They're all okay, though. They were hiding in my brother's truck. In the engine part. I don't know. They're weird. I don't understand. I was just freaking out because we've had two go missing in the last few days, and we're fairly certain someone's just grabbing them and taking them, and we don't know who or where they're going. Anyway, we're in chapter 9, page 100, and it's going to bother me a lot more than it should. Also, this chapter is 22 pages long, so we're going to be here for about 40 minutes. Friday night, I went to see Bianca, the vampiress. Vampiress? I don't know. How would you want to pronounce it? I didn't just leap out of bed and go see her, of course. You don't go walking into the proverbial lion's den lightly. You start with a good breakfast. Off to a great start. My breakfast took place around 3 in the afternoon when I woke up to hear my phone ringing. I had to get out of bed and pad into the main room to answer it. What? I grumbled. As best I got. Dresden, Murphy said. What can you tell me? Murphy sounded distressed. Sorry. Her voice had that distinct edge that she got whenever she was nervous, and it rankled me. What? Like fingernails scraping on bones. Ugh. I can feel that. I don't like this. The investigation into Tommy Tom's murder must not be going well. Nothing yet, I said, and I lied to her a little. I was up most of the night working, but nothing to show yet. She answered me with a swear word. That's not good enough, Harry. I need answers, and I need them yesterday. I'll get to it as fast as I can. Get to it faster, she snarled. She was angry. Not that this was unusual for Murphy, but it told me that something else was going on. Some people panic when things get rough, harried. Some people fall apart. Murphy got ticked. Commissioner writing her back again? City Police Commissioner Howard Fairweather used Murphy and her team as scapegoats for all sorts of unsolvable crimes that he had dumped in her lap. Fairweather was always lurking around, trying for an opportunity to make Murphy look bad, as though by doing so he could avoid being crucified himself. Like the winged monkey from The Wizard of Oz. It kind of makes you wonder who's leaning on him to get things done. Her voice was sour as ripe lemons. Margaret dropped Alka-Seltzer. I've used those once. Into a glass of liquid. I'm serious, Harry. You give me the answers I need, and you get them to me fast. Wow. It's hot in here. I need to know if this was sorcery, and if so, how it was done, and who could have done it. Names, places, I need to know everything. It isn't that simple, but then make it simple. How long before you can tell me? I need an estimate for the Commissioner's Investigative Committee in 15 minutes, or I might as well turn in my badge today. I grimaced. If I was able to get something out of Bianca, I might be able to help Murphy on the investigation. But if it proved fruitless, I was going to have spent the entire evening doing nothing productive, and Murphy needed her answers now. Maybe I should have made a stay awake potion. That sounds interesting. Does the committee work weekends? Murphy snorted. Are you kidding? We'll have something by Monday then. You can have it figured out by then, she asked. I don't know how much good it'll do you, even if I can puzzle it out. There's something wrong with me. I hope you've got more to go on than this. I heard her sigh into the phone and drink the fizzy drink. Don't let me down, Harry. Time to change the subject before she pinned me down and smelled me lying. I had no intention of doing the forbidden research if I could find a way out of doing it. No luck with Bianca? Another swear word. That beep won't talk to us, just smiles and nods and blows smoke, makes small talk and crosses her legs. You should have seen Carmichael drooling. Well, tough to blame him. Maybe. I hear she's cute. Listen, Murph. What if I just... No, Harry, absolutely not. You will not go over to the Velvet Room, and you will not talk to that woman. You will not get involved in this. Lieutenant Murphy, I drawled. A little jealous, are we? Don't flatter yourself. You're a civilian, Dresden, even if you do have your investigator's license. If you get your butt laid out in the hospital or the morgue, it'll be me that suffers for it. Murph, I'm touched. Oh man, I find this funnier than it should be. I'll touch your head to a brick wall a few times if you cross me on this, Harry. Her voice was sharp, vehement. Hey, wind down, Murph. If you don't want me to go, no problem. Oops, a lie. She'd go all over that like a troll and a billy goat. You're a lousy liar, Harry. That's right. I'll have to take you down to lockup just to keep you from... What? I said loudly into the receiver. Murph, you're breaking up. I can't hear you. Darn phone again. Call me back. Then I hung up on her. Mister padded over to me and batted at my leg. He watched me with serious green eyes as I leaned down and unplugged the phone as it started to ring again. Okay, mister. You hungry? I got us breakfast. Leftover steak sandwich for him. That's nice. SpaghettiOs heated up on the wood stove for me. I rationed out my last can of Coke, which Mr. craves at least as badly as I do, and by the time I was done eating and drinking and petting, I was awake and thinking again, and getting ready for sundown. Daylight savings time hadn't cut in yet, and dark would fall around 6. I had about 2 hours to get set to go. You might think you know a thing or two about vampires. Maybe some of the stuff you've heard is accurate. Likely it's not. Either way, I wasn't looking forward to the prospect of going into Bianca's lair to demand information from her. I was going to assume that things were going to get ugly before all was said and done, just to make sure I didn't get caught with my staff down. Wizardry is all about thinking ahead, about being prepared. Wizards aren't really superhuman, we just have a leg up on seeing things more clearly than other people, and being able to use the extra information we have for our benefit. Heck, the word wizard comes from the same root as wise. Huh, I wonder if that's true. It seems like it. What do you guys think? You know, yesterday it was really cloudy. What was that? We know things. We aren't any stronger or faster than anyone else. We don't even have all that much more going in the mental department. But we're awful sneaky, and if we get the chance to get set for something, we can do some impressive things. As a wizard, if you're ready to address a problem, then it's likely that you'll be able to come up with something that will let you deal with it. So, I got together all the things I thought I might need. I made sure my cane was polished and ready. I put my silver knife in a sheath that hung just under my left arm. I put the escape potion in its plastic squeeze bottle into my duster's pocket. I put on my favorite talisman, a silver pentacle on a silver chain. It had been my mother's. My father had passed it down to me, and I put a small, folded piece of white cloth into my pocket. I had several enchanted items around, or half-enchanted items anyway. Carrying out a full enchantment is expensive and time-consuming, and I just couldn't afford to do it very much. We blue-collar wizards have to sling a few spells out where we can and hope they don't go stale at the wrong time. I would have been a lot more comfortable if I had been carrying my blasting rod or my staff, but that would be like showing up at Bianca's door in a tank, walking in carrying a machine gun and a flamethrower while announcing my intention to fight. I had to maintain a fine balance between going in ready for trouble and going in asking for trouble. Not that I was afraid, mind you. I didn't think Bianca would be willing to cause problems for a mortal wizard. Bianca wouldn't want to tick off the White Council by messing with me. On the other hand, I wasn't exactly the White Council's favorite guy. They might even look the other way if Bianca decided to take me quietly out of the picture. Careful, Harry, I warned myself. Don't get entirely paranoid. If you get like that, you'll be building your little apartment into a basement of solitude. Anyway, what do you think? I asked Mr. Once I was decked out in what paraphernalia I was willing to carry. Mr. went to the door and batted at it insistently. Everyone's a critic. Fine, fine, I sighed. Good. I let him out, then I went out, got into my car, and drove down to the Velvet Room in its expensive lakeside location. Bianca runs her business out of a huge old mansion from the early days of the Roaring Twenties. Rumor has it that the infamous Al Capone had it built for one of his mistresses. There was a gate with an iron fence and a security guard. I pulled up the Beetle into the little swath of a driveway that began at the street and ended at the fence. There's a hiccoughing rattle from back in the engine as I brought the machine to a halt. I rolled down the window and stuck my head out, peering back. Something went woof, and then black smoke poured out from the bottom of the car and scuttled down the slope of the drive and into the street. I winced. The engine gave an almost apologetic rattle and shuddered to its death. Aw. Great. Now I had no ride home. I got out of the Beetle and stood mourning it for a moment. That's sad. I miss my car. The security guard on the other side of the gate was a blocky man, not overly tall, but overly muscled and hiding it under an expensive suit. He studied me with attack dog eyes and then said, through the gate, "Do you have an appointment?" Did I say that right? I don't even know. No, I told him, but I think Bianca will want to see me. He looked unimpressed. I'm sorry, he said. Bianca is out for the evening. Things are never simple anymore. I shrugged at him, folded my arms, and leaned on the hood of the Beetle. Suit yourself, I'll just stay until a tow truck comes by then, until I can get this thing out of the drive for you. He stared at me, his eyes narrowed down to tiny slits with the effort of thinking. Eventually, the thoughts got to his brain, got processed, and sent back out with a message to pass the buck. I'll call your name in, he said. Good man, I approved. You won't be sorry. Name, he growled. Harry Dresden. If he recognized my name, it didn't show on his face. He glared at me and the Beetle, then walked a few paces off, lifting a cellular phone from his pocket into his ear. I listened. Listening isn't hard to do. No one has practice at it. Nowadays, you can train yourself to pay attention to your senses if you work at it long enough. I've got a guy down here who says that Bianca will want to talk to him, the guard said. Says his name is Harry Dresden. He was silent for a moment. I couldn't quite make out the buzz of the other voice, other than that it was female. Uh-huh, he said. He glanced back at me. Uh-huh, he said again. Sure. I will, of course, ma'am. I reached through the window of the Beetle and got out my cane. I rested it on the concrete beside my boots and tapped it a few times, as though impatient. The guard turned back to me, leaned over one side, and pushed a button somewhere. The gate buzzed and clicked open. Come on in, Mr. Dresden, he said. I can have someone tow your car if you like. Super, I told him. I gave him the name of the record Mike has a deal with and told him to tell the guy that it was Harry's car again. Fido, the guard, dutifully noted this down. Oh, I get it. Writing on a small notebook he drew from a pocket. While he did, I walked past him toward the house, clicking my cane on the concrete with every pace. Stop, he told me, his voice calm and confident. People don't speak with that kind of absolute authority unless they have a gun in their hands. I stopped. Put the cane down, he told me, and put your arms up. You're to be searched before you are allowed inside. I sighed, did what he said, and I let him pat me down. I didn't turn around to face him, but I could smell the metal of his gun. He found the knife and took it. His fingers brushed the nape of my neck. Felt the chain there. What's this? He said. Pentacle, I told him. Let me see it. Use one hand. I used my left to draw it out of my shirt and show it to him. A silver 5-pointed star within the circle. All smooth geometry. He grunted and said, fine. The search went on and found the plastic squeeze bottle. He took it out of my pocket and opened it, sniffing it. What's this? I can't wait for Halloween. A health cola, I told him. It smells like excrement. he said, capped it and put it back in my pocket. What about my cane? Return when you leave, he said. Curses. My cane and my knife have been my only physical lines of defense. Anything else I did would have to rely wholly upon magic, and that could be dicey on the best of days. It was enough to rattle me. Of course, Fido the guard had missed a couple of things. First, he'd overlooked the clean white handkerchief in my pocket. Second, he'd passed me on with my pentacle still upon my neck. He probably figured that since it wasn't a crucifix or a cross, that I couldn't use it to keep Bianca away from me, which wasn't true. Vampires and other such creatures don't respond to symbols as such. They respond to the power that accompanies the act of faith. I couldn't ward off a vampire mosquito with my faith in the Almighty. He and I just never seemed to connect, but the pentacle was a symbol of magic itself, and I had plenty of faith in that. To be fair, it's also a Christian symbol. Most people don't know that. A lot of things get adopted and transferred over, Never mind. And of course, Fido had overlooked my getaway potion. Bianca really ought to trust her guards with more awareness of the supernatural and what sort of things to look for. The house itself was elegant, very roomy, with the high ceilings and broad floors that they just don't make anymore. A well-groomed young woman with a short, straight haircut greeted me in the enormous entry hall. I was passing polite to her, and she showed me to the library, its walls lined with old books and leather bindings, similar to the leather cushioned chairs around the enormous old dog foot table in the room center. What? I took a seat and waited and waited and waited. More than half an hour went by before Bianca finally arrived. She came into the room like a candle burning with a cold, clear flame. Her hair was a burnished shade of auburn that was too dark to cast back any ruddy highlights, but did anyway. Her eyes were dark, clear, her complexion flawlessly smooth and elegantly graced with cosmetics. She was not a tall woman, but shapely, wearing a black dress with a plunging neckline and a slash in one side that showed off a generous portion of pale thigh. I'm uncomfortable. Black gloves covered her hands to above the elbows, and her $300 shoes were a study in high-heeled torture devices. She looked too good to be true. Oh, dear. Mr. Dresden, she greeted me. This is an unexpected pleasure. I rose when she entered the room, as well you should. Madame Bianca, I replied, nodding to her. We meet at last. Hearsay neglected to mention how lovely you are. She laughed, lips shaping to the sounds, head falling back just enough to show a flash of pale front. Oh dear. A gentleman, they said. I see that they were correct. It is a charmingly passé thing to be a gentleman in this country. She approached me and extended her hand, a motion oozing feminine grace. I bowed over her hand, briefly taking it and brushing my lips against the back of her glove. Do you really think I'm beautiful, Mr. Dresden? She asked me. As lovely as a star, madame. Uh-oh. Polite and a pretty one, too, she murmured. Dang it! Her eyes flickered over me from head to toe, but even she avoided meeting gazes with me. Whether from a desire to avoid inadvertently directing her power at me, or being on the receiving end of mine, I couldn't tell. She continued into the room and stopped beside one of the comfortable chairs. As a matter of course, I stepped around the table and drew up a chair for her, seating her. She crossed her legs in that dress and those shoes, and made it look good. I blinked for just a moment, and returned to my own seat. So, Mr. Dresden, what brings you to my humble house? Care for an evening of entertainment? I quite assure you that you will never have another experience like it. She placed her hands in her lap, smiling at me. I smiled at her and put one hand into my pocket onto the white handkerchief. No, thank you. I came to talk. Her lips parted in a silent ah. I see. About what, if I may ask? About Jennifer Stanton and her murder. I had all of a second's warning. Bianca's eyes narrowed, then widened to those of a cat about to spring. Then she was coming at me over the table, faster than a breath, her arms extended toward my throat. I'd have just died. 100%. I toppled over backward in my chair, even though I'd started to move first. It almost wasn't enough to get away from her reaching nails in time. One grazed my throat with a hot sensation of pain, and she kept coming, following me down to the floor, those rich lips drawn back from me, and sharp fangs. Ooh. I jerked my hand out of my pocket and flapped open my white hanky at her, releasing the image of sunlight I'd been storing for use of potions. It lit up the room for a moment, brilliant. Huh. The light smashed into Bianca, hurled her back across the old table into one of the shelves, and tore pieces of flesh away from her, like bits of rotten meat being peeled off of a carcass by a sandblaster. She screamed, and the flesh around her mouth sloughed. I don't know. I've seen this word before a few times, but I've never been sure how it's pronounced. It peeled away like a snake's scales. I had never seen a real vampire before. I would have time to be terrified later. I took in the details as I tugged my talisman over my neck. It had a bat-like face, horrid and ugly, the head too big for its body. Gaping, hungry jaws, its shoulders were hunched and powerful. Membranous wings stretched between the joints of its almost skeletal arms. Flabby black skin hung before it, spilling out of the black dress that no longer looked feminine. Its eyes were wide, black, and staring. A kind of leathery, slimy hide covered its flesh, like an inner tube lathered with Vaseline. Oh gosh! Though there were tiny holes corroded in it by the sunlight I had brought with me. Morning. Iggy's in there, be careful. I don't think he heard me. Watch out for Iggy. No response. Where was I? Oh. It recovered quickly, crouching and spreading long arms that ended in claw-tipped fingers to either side with a hiss of rage. There we go. Okay, we've got 10 more pages left, and it took about 16, 17 minutes. So yeah, about 45. I drew my pentacle into my fist, raised it like every vampire slayer you ever saw does it, and said, I'll just say Jeez Louise, I guess? I don't know. No cursing. I just came here to talk. What? Oh, okay, never mind. The vampire hissed and started toward me with a gangling, weirdly graceful step. Its clawed feet were still wearing the $300 black pumps. Back, I said, taking a step towards it myself. The pentacle began to burn with the cold, clear light of applied will and belief. My faith, if you will, that it could turn such a monster aside. It hissed and turned its face aside, lifting its membranous arms to shield its eyes from the light. It took one step back, and then another, until its hunched back was pressed against the wall of books. Now, what did I do? I wasn't going to try and put a stake through her heart, but if I lowered my will, she might come at me again, and I didn't think I had anything. Even the quickest evocations that I could get out of my mouth before she tore it off my head. And even if I got past her, she probably had mortal lackeys, like the security guard at the gate, who would be happy to kill me if they saw me trashing their mistress. What? You killed her! The vampire snarled, and its voice was exactly the same. Never mind. Sultry and feminine, even though twisted by rage coming from that horrid mouth. It was unsettling. Man, that voice, oh, never mind. You killed Jennifer. She was mine, Rachling. Look, I told her, I didn't come here for any of this, and the police know I'm here. Save yourself a lot of trouble. Sit down, talk with me, and then we'll both go away happy. Jeez, Bianca, do you think that if I killed Jennifer and Tommy Tom, I'd just be waltzing in here like this? You expect me to believe that you didn't? You will never leave this house alive. I was feeling angry myself and frightened. Even the vampire thought I was the bad guy. What will it take to convince you that I didn't do it? Black, bottomless eyes stared at me through the burning fire of my faith. I could feel some sort of power there, trying to get at me, and held off by the force of my will, just as the creature itself was. The vampire snarled, "Lower the amulet, wizard. If I do, are you going to come at my throat again? If you do not, I most certainly will." Shaky logic, that. I tried to work through the situation from her point of view. She had been scared when I showed up. She had me searched and divested of weapons as best she could. If she thought I was Jennifer Stanton's murderer, would the mere mention of that name have brought that sudden violence out of her? I began to get that sinking feeling you get when you realize not everything is as it appears. If I put this down, I told her, I want your word that you'll sit down and talk to me. I swear to you by fire and wind that I had nothing to do with her death. The vampire hissed at me, shielding its eyes from the light with one taloned hand. Why should I believe you? Why should I believe you? I countered. Yellowed fangs showed in its mouth. If you do not trust my word, wizard, then how can I trust yours? Then you give it? The vampire stiffened, and though its voice was still harsh with rage and pain, still attractive as a silk shirt without any buttons. But I thought I heard the ring of truth in its words. You have my promise. Lower your talisman, and we will talk. Time for another calculated risk. I tossed the pentacle onto the table. The cold light drained away, leaving the room lit by mere electricity once more. The vampire slowly lowered its arms, blinking its two big eyes at me, and then the pentacle upon the table. A long, pink tongue flickered out nervously over its jaws and lower face, but slipped back into its mouth. It was surprised, I realized. Surprised that I had done it. My heart was racing, but I forced my fear back down out of my forebrain and into the background. Vampires are like demons, like wolves, like sharks. You don't let them think that you are potential food and get their respect at the same time. The vampire's true appearance was grotesque, but it wasn't as bad as some of the things I had seen in my day. Some demons were a lot worse, and some of the elder things could rip your mind apart just by letting you look at them. I regarded the creature with a level gaze. Elder things, like Cthulhu and all them. How about it? I said. Let's talk. The longer we sit around staring at one another, the longer Jennifer's killer stays freed. The vampire stared at me for a moment more. Then it shuddered, drawing its wing membranes about itself. Black slime turned into patches of pale, perfect flesh that spread over the vampire's dark skin like a growth of fungus. Ugh. Let's skip this sentence. Bianca stood before me a moment later, settling her black dress into modesty again. Her arms crossed over her as though she was cold, her back stiff and her eyes angry. She was no less beautiful than she had been a few moments before, not a line or curve any different. But for me, the glamour had been ruined. She still had the same eyes, dark and fathomless and alien. I would always remember what she truly looked like beneath her flesh mask, like the Red Woman. Spoilers! I stopped and picked up my chair, righting it. Then I went around the table, turned my back to her, and stood hers up as well. Then I held it out for her, just as I had when I had entered the room. She stared at me for a long minute. Some expression flickered across her face. She was disconcerted by my apparent lack of concern about the way she looked, and it told. And she lifted her chin, proud, and settled gracefully into the chair again, regal as any queen, every line stiff with anger. The old world rules of courtesy and hospitality were holding, but for how long? I returned to my seat and leaned over to pick up my white handkerchief, toying with it. Bianca's angry eyes flickered down to it, and once again she repeated the nervous gesture of licking her teeth and lips, though this time her tongue looked human. That was weird. So, tell me about Jennifer and Tommy Tom, I said. She shook her head, almost sneering. I can tell you what I told the police. I don't know who could have killed them. Come on, Bianca, we don't have to hide things from one another. We're not a part of the mortal world. Her eyebrows slanted down, revealing more anger. No. You're the only one in the city with the kind of skill required to cast that sort of spell. If you didn't do it, I have no idea who else could have. You don't have any enemies? Anyone who might have been wanting to make an impression on you? A bitter line appeared at the corner of her lips, something that was not quite a smile. Of course, but none of them could have managed what happened to Tommy and Jenny. She drummed the fingernails over the tabletop, leaving more score marks in the wood. I don't let any enemies have dangerous run around alive, at least not for long. I settled back in my chair, frowning, and did my hardest. Best? Not to let her see how scared I was. How did you know Tommy Tom? She shrugged her shoulders, her shoulders gleaming like porcelain, and just as brittle. You may have thought he was just a bruiser for droning my phone, Mr. Dresden, but Tommy was a very gentle and considerate man underneath. He was always good to his women. He treated them like real people. Her gaze shifted from side to side, not lifting. Like human beings, I wouldn't take on a client if I thought he wouldn't be a gentleman. But Tommy was better than most. I met him years ago, elsewhere. I always made sure he had someone to take care of him when he wanted an evening in company. You sent Jennifer out to him that night? She nodded, her expression bleak. Her nails drummed the tabletop again, gouging out more wood. Was there anyone else he saw on a regular basis? Maybe someone who would have talked to him, known what was going on in his life? Bianca shook her head. No, she said, but then she frowned. I just watched her and absently toss the handkerchief on the tabletop. Her eyes flicked to it, then up to mine. I didn't flinch. I met her bottomless gaze and worked my mouth up in a little smile, as though I had something more and worse to pull out of my hat if she wanted to come after me again. I saw her anger, her rage, and just for a moment I got a peek inside and saw the source of it. She was furious that I had seen her true form, horrified and embarrassed that I had stripped her disguise away and seen the creature beneath. And she was afraid I could take away even her mask forever with my power. More than anything else, Bianca wanted to be beautiful, and tonight I had destroyed her illusion. I had rattled her gilded little world. She sure as sugar wasn't going to let me forget that. She shuddered and jerked her eyes away, furious and frightened at the same time, before I could see any deeper into her, or she into me. If I had not given you my word, Dresden, she whispered, I would kill you this instant. That would be unfortunate, I said. I kept my voice hard. You should know the risks in a wizard's death curse. You've got something to lose, Bianca. And even if you could take me out, you can bet you're pretty behind. I'd be dragging you into hell with me. She stiffened, then turned her head to one side and let her fingers go limp. It was a silent, bitter surrender. She didn't move quickly enough for me to miss seeing a tear streak down one cheek. It made the vampire cry. Great. I felt like a real superhero. Harry Dresden, breaker of monsters' hearts. There may be one person who might know something, she said, her lovely voice dull, flat, lifeless. I had a woman who worked for me, Linda Randall. She and Jennifer went out on calls together when customers wanted that sort of thing. They were close. Where is she now? I asked. She's working as a driver for someone. Some rich couple who wanted a servant that would do more than windows. She wasn't the type I usually keep around in any case. I think Jennifer had her phone number. I can have someone fetch it for you, Mr. Dresden. She said my name as though it were something bitter and poisonous that she wanted to spit out. Thank you, that would be very kind. I kept my tongue carefully formal, neutral. Formality and a good bluff were all that was keeping her from my throat. She remained quiet, controlling her evident emotions, before she started to look up again at last. Her eyes froze, then widened when they came to my throat. Her expression went perfectly and humanly still. I grew tense, not just tense, but steel tight. A wire-bound spring coiled. I was out of tricks and weapons. If she came after me now, I wasn't going to get the chance to defend myself. There was no way I would be able to drink the potion before she tore me apart. I gripped the arms of my chair hard to keep myself from bolting. Do not show fear, do not run away. I would only make her chase me, snap her instincts as a reaction of pursuing the prey. Uh-oh. You're bleeding, Mr. Dresden, she whispered. I lifted my hand slowly to my throat where her nails had scored me earlier. My fingertips came away slick with my own blood. Bianca kept on staring. Her tongue flicked around her mouth again. Cover it, she whispered. A strange mewling sound came out of her mouth. Cover it, Dresden. I picked up my handkerchief and pressed it over my throat. Bianca blinked. Her eyes closed slowly, then turned away, half hunched over her stomach. She didn't stand up. Go, she told me. Go now. Rachel's coming. I'll send her down to the gate with the phone number in a little while. I walked toward the door, but then stopped, glancing back at her. There was a sort of horrid fascination to it, to knowing what was beneath the alluring exterior, the flesh mask, to seeing it twist and writhe and bleed. Go, Bianca whimpered. Fury, hunger, and some emotion I couldn't even begin to fathom made her voice stretch out, thinner. Go, and do not think that I will not remember this night. Do not think I will not make you regret it. Yeah. The door to the library opened, and the straight-haired woman who had greeted me earlier entered the room. She gave me a passing glance, then walked past me, kneeling at Bianca's side. Rachel, I presumed. Rachel murmured, Darn it! Something too soft to hear, gently brushing Bianca's hair back from her face with one hand. She unbuttoned the sleeve of her blouse, rolled it up past her elbow, and pressed her wrist to Bianca's mouth. I had a good view of what happened. Bianca's tongue flashed out, long and pink and sticky, smearing Rachel's wrist with shiny saliva. Rachel shuddered at the touch, her breath coming quicker. What? Let's just skip this sentence. She let her head fall slowly backwards. Her eyes were glazed over with a narcotic languor. I don't know what that is. Like those of a junkie who had just shot up. Bianca's fangs extended and slashed open Rachel's pale, pretty skin. Blood welled. Bianca's tongue began to flesh in and out, faster than could be really seen, lapping the blood up as quickly as it appeared. Her dark eyes were narrowed, distant. Rachel was gasping and moaning, her entire body shivering. I felt a little sick and withdrew step by step, not turning my back on the scene. Rachel toppled slowly to the floor, writhing her way toward unconsciousness with an evident glee. Bianca followed her down, unladylike now, a creature of a bestial hunger. She crouched over the supine woman, and in the hunch of her pale shoulders, I could see the bat-like thing beneath the flesh mask lapping up Rachel's blood. It's disturbing. I got out of there fast, shutting the door behind me. My heart was hammering too quickly. The scene with Rachel might have aroused me if I hadn't seen what was underneath Bianca's mask. Instead, it only made me sick to my stomach, afraid. The woman had given herself to that thing as quickly and as willingly as any woman to her lover, but the saliva, some part of me rationalized, desperate to latch onto something cold and logical and detached. The saliva was probably narcotic, perhaps even addictive. That would explain Rachel's behavior, the need to have more of her drug. But I wondered if Rachel would have been so eager had she known Bianca's true face. Now I understood why the White Council was so hard-nosed with vampires. If they could get that kind of control over a mortal, what would happen if they could get their hooks into a wizard? If they could addict a wizard to them as thoroughly as Bianca had the girl I'd just seen? Surely it wasn't possible. But if it wasn't, why would the council be so nervous about them? Do not think I will not make you regret it, she had said. I felt cold as I hurried down the dark driveway toward the gate. Fido, the security guard, was waiting for me at the front gate and passed back my knife and my cane without a word. A tow truck was out front, latching itself to the beetle. I put one hand on the cold metal of the gate and kept the other with its handkerchief pressed to my throat. As I watched George, the tow truck guy, work, Sorry. He recognized me and waved, flashing a grin that showed the white teeth on his dark face. I nodded back. I wasn't up to answering the smile. A few minutes later, the guard's cellular phone beeped at him. He withdrew several paces, repeated several affirmatives, then took a notebook from his pocket, writing something down. He put the phone away and walked back over to me, offering a piece of paper. "What's this?" I said. "The phone number you were looking for, and a message." I glanced at the paper, but avoided reading it just then. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. The phone number you're looking for and a message. I glanced at the paper, but avoided reading it just then. I thought Bianca was going to send Rachel down with it. He didn't say anything, but his jaw tightened, and I saw his eyes flick toward the house where his mistress was. He swallowed. Rachel wasn't coming out of the house, and Fido was afraid. I took the paper. I kept my hand from shaking as I looked at it. On it was a phone number, and a single word. Regret. I folded the piece of paper in half and put it away in the pocket of my duster. Another enemy. Super. At least with my hands in my pockets, Fido couldn't see them shaking. Maybe I should have listened to Murphy. Maybe I should have stayed home and played with some nice, safe, forbidden black magic instead. Well, that was a lot of fun. Not quite as long as I thought it was going to be, but it's close enough, huh? Anywho, what time is it now? Yikes. Okay. That was a lot of information that didn't get us anywhere. But at least he got a coup. What do you think of the vampires in this series? Do you think they're all like that? Are there going to be variations? I'm probably going to sit down for the next book just because I'm kind of tired now. And I need a lot of water. And Iggy is still in the tub. Now that I think about it, Joseph probably didn't shut the door, so I'm going to have to do that. So let me know what you guys think. Who might have done this? What's the relation to the person he's looking for now to who killed the people at the start of the story? And we'll see where we go from there. Until next time, goodbye everybody. I feel like I'm forgetting something else.